And the serpent was more crafty than any animal of the field which Jehovah Elohim had made. And it said to the woman, Is it even so, that God has said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a pleasure for the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to give intelligence. And she took of its fruit, and ate, and gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. And they heard the voice of Jehovah Elohim, walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Jehovah Elohim, in the midst of the trees of the garden. And Jehovah Elohim said to the serpent, Because thou hast done this, be thou cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. On thy belly shalt thou go, and eat dust all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. He shall crush thy head, and thou shalt crush his heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly increase thy travail and thy pregnancy. With pain thou shalt bear children, and to thy husband shall be thy desire, and he shall rule over thee. And Jehovah Elohim made Adam and his wife coats of skin, and clothed them. And Jehovah Elohim said, Behold, man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he stretch out his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. And the serpent was more crafty than any animal of the field which Jehovah Elohim had made. And it said to the woman, Is it even so, that God has said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And Jehovah Elohim said to the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. And Jehovah Elohim said to the serpent, Because thou hast done this, be thou cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. On thy belly shalt thou go, and eat dust all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. He shall crush thy head, and thou shalt crush his heel. In that day Jehovah, with his sore and great and strong sword, will visit Leviathan the fleeing serpent, and Leviathan the crooked serpent, and he will slay the monster that is in the sea. Behold, I send you as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be therefore prudent as the serpents, and guileless as the doves. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent deceived Eve by his craft, so your thoughts should be corrupted from simplicity as to the Christ. And it is not wonderful, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. And the great dragon was cast out, the ancient serpent, he who is called Devil and Satan, he who deceives the whole habitable world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And he laid hold of the dragon, the ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Ye are of the devil, as your father, and ye desire to do the lusts of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning, and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks falsehood, he speaks of what is his own, for he is a liar and its father. And Jehovah opened the mouth of the ass, and she said to Balaam, What have I done to thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the ass, Because thou hast mocked me. I would there were a sword in my hand, for now would I kill thee. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, and who hath not another to lift him up. Ye husbands likewise, dwell with them according to knowledge, as with a weaker, even the female, vessel, giving him honor, as also fellow heirs of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. And the tempter coming up to him said, If thou be Son of God, speak, that these stones may become loaves of bread. And says to him, If thou be Son of God, cast thyself down. For it is written, He shall give charge to his angels concerning thee, and on their hands shall they bear thee, lest in any wise thou strike thy foot against a stone. And says to him, All these things will I give thee if, falling down, thou wilt do me homage. And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder which stoppeth her ear. But of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, God has said, Ye shall not eat of it, and ye shall not touch it, lest ye die. And Jehovah Elohim commanded man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou shalt freely eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest of it thou shalt certainly die. And God said to him in a dream, I also knew that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart, and I, too, have withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore have I not suffered thee to touch her. And set bounds round about the people, saying, Take heed to yourselves, not to go up unto the mountain nor touch the border of it. Whatever toucheth the mountain shall certainly be put to death. Not a hand shall touch it, but it shall certainly be stoned, or shot through. Whether it be a beast or a man, it shall not live. When the long-drawn note of the trumpet soundeth, they shall come up to the mountain. But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he hath, and see if he will not curse thee to thy face. But put forth thy hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and see if he will not curse thee to thy face. Have pity upon me, ye my friends, for the hand of God hath touched me. But concerning the things of which ye have written to me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Wherefore come out from the midst of them, and be separated, saith the Lord, and touch not what is unclean, and I will receive you. Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. And the serpent said to the woman, Ye will not certainly die. Ye are of the devil, as your father, and ye desire to do the lusts of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning, and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks falsehood, he speaks of what is his own, for he is a liar and its father. And Jehovah Elohim said to the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. And it come to pass, when he heareth the words of this curse, that he bless himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, to sweep away the drunken with the thirsty. He saith in his heart, God hath forgotten, he hiddeth his face, he will never see it. That we might not have Satan get an advantage against us, for we are not ignorant of his thoughts. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent deceived Eve by his craft, so your thoughts should be corrupted from simplicity as to the Christ. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, was in transgression. But God knows that in the day ye eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and ye will be as God, knowing good and evil. Thou shalt not idly utter the name of Jehovah thy God, for Jehovah will not hold him guiltless that idly uttereth his name. And I said, Alas, Lord Jehovah, behold, the prophets say unto them, Ye shall not see the sword, neither shall ye have famine. For I will give you assured peace in this place. And Jehovah said unto me, The prophets prophesy falsehood in my name. I have not sent him, neither have I commanded them, nor spoken unto them. They prophesy unto you a false vision, and divination, and a thing of naught, and the deceit of their heart. Thus speaketh Jehovah of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. Within 2 full years will I bring again into this place all the vessels of Jehovah's house, that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon took away from this place, and carried to Babylon. Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say unto them that prophesy out of their own heart, Hear ye the word of Jehovah. Thus saith the Lord Jehovah, Woe unto the foolish prophets, that follow their own spirit, and have seen nothing. O Israel, thy prophets have been like foxes in desert places. Ye have not gone up into the breaches, nor made up the fence for the house of Israel, to stand in the battle in the day of Jehovah. They have seen vanity and lying divination, that say, Jehovah saith. And Jehovah hath not sent them, and they make them to hope that the word will be fulfilled. Because with falsehood ye have grieved the heart of the righteous, whom I have not made sad, and have strengthened the hands of the wicked, that he should not return from his wicked way, to save his life. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent deceived Eve by his craft, so your thoughts should be corrupted from simplicity as to the Christ. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And it is not wonderful, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. It is no great thing therefore if his ministers also transform themselves as ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I feared, because I am naked, and I hid myself. But if thine eye be wicked, thy whole body will be dark. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great the darkness? To open their eyes, that they may turn from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive remission of sins and inheritance among them that are sanctified by faith in me. And Pharaoh said, Who is Jehovah, to whose voice I am to hearken to let Israel go? I do not know Jehovah, neither will I let Israel go. And now, let not Hezekiah deceive you, nor persuade you in this manner, neither yet believe him. For no God of any nation or kingdom was able to deliver his people out of my hand, nor out of the hand of my fathers. How much less shall your God deliver you out of my hand? Who have said, With our tongue will we prevail, our lips are our own, who is Lord over us? Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyre, Thus saith the Lord Jehovah, because thy heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a god, I sit in the seat of God, in the heart of the seas, and thou art a man, and not God, and thou settest thy heart as the heart of God. Wilt thou then say before him that slayeth thee, I am God? But thou shalt be a man, and not God, in the hand of him that pierceth thee. Speak, and say, Thus saith the Lord Jehovah. Behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh king of Egypt, the great monster that lieth in the midst of his rivers, which saith, My river is mine own, and I made it for myself. The king spoke and said, Is not this great Babylon, that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty? All the presidents of the kingdom, the prefects, and the satraps, the counselors, and the governors have consulted together to establish a royal statute, and to make a firm decree, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, except of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. And the people cried out, A god's voice and not a man's. And immediately an angel of the Lord smote him, because he did not give the glory to God, and he expired, eaten of worms. In whom the God of this world has blinded the thoughts of the unbelieving, so that the radiancy of the glad tidings of the glory of the Christ, who is the image of God, should not shine forth for them. Who opposes and exalts himself on high against all called God, or object of veneration, so that he himself sits down in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And they did homage to the dragon, because he gave the authority to the beast. And they did homage to the beast, saying, Who is like to the beast? And who can make war with it? And it deceives those that dwell upon the earth by reason of the signs which it was given to it to work before the beast, saying to those that dwell upon the earth to make an image to the beast, which has the wound of the sword, and lived. And Jehovah Elohim said, Behold, man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he stretch out his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest of it thou shalt certainly die. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a pleasure for the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to give intelligence. And she took of its fruit, and ate, and gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. I saw among the spoils a beautiful mantle of Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a golden bar of 50 shekels weight, and I coveted them and took them. And behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. And Samson went to Gaza, and saw there a harlot, and went in to her. And it was told the Gazathites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they surrounded him, and laid wait for him all night at the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, In the morning light we will kill him. Son of man, behold, I take away from thee the desire of thine eyes with a stroke. Yet thou shalt not mourn nor weep, neither shall thy tears run down. Say unto the house of Israel, Thus saith the Lord Jehovah, Behold, I will profane my sanctuary, the pride of your strength, the desire of your eyes, and your soul's longing, and your sons and your daughters whom ye have left behind shall fall by the sword. And thou, son of man, shall it not be in the day when I take from them their strength, the joy of their glory, the desire of their eyes, and that whereunto they lift up their soul, their sons and their daughters, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and took themselves wives of all that they chose. And it came to pass after these things, that his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph, and said, Lie with me. I saw among the spoils a beautiful mantle of Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a golden bar of 50 shekels weight, and I coveted him and took them. And behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. And it came to pass at evening time that David arose from off his couch, and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. I made a covenant with mine eyes, and how should I fix my regard upon a maid? But I say unto you, that every one who looks upon a woman to lust after her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Because all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, was in transgression. And man said, The woman, whom thou hast given to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And to Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife, and eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed be the ground on thy account. With toil shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. But they like Adam have transgressed the covenant. There have they dealt treacherously against me. For this cause, even as by one man sin entered into the world, and by sin death, and thus death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. For until law sin was in the world. But sin is not put to account when there is no law. But death reigned from Adam until Moses, even upon those who had not sinned in the likeness of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him to come. But shall not the act of favor be as the offense? For if by the offense of one the many have died, much rather has the grace of God, and the free gift in grace, which is by the one man Jesus Christ, abounded unto the many. And shall not as by one that has sinned be the gift? For the judgment was of one to condemnation, but the act of favor, of many offenses unto justification. For if by the offense of the one death reigned by the one, much rather shall those who receive the abundance of grace, and of the free gift of righteousness, reign in life by the one Jesus Christ. So then as it was by one offense towards all men to condemnation, so by one righteousness towards all men for justification of life. For as indeed by the disobedience of the one man the many have been constituted sinners, so also by the obedience of the one the many will be constituted righteous. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. But God knows that in the day ye eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and ye will be as God, knowing good and evil. And thou shalt be mad through the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And in Hades lifting up his eyes, being in torments, he sees Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I feared, because I am naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou art naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee not to eat? And they were both naked, man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Be it that I am wicked, why then do I labor in vain? If I washed myself with snow water, and cleansed my hands in purity, then wouldest thou plunge me in the ditch, and mine own clothes would abhor me. For the bed is too short to stretch oneself on, and the covering too narrow when he would wrap himself in it. Their webs shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. And they heard the voice of Jehovah Elohim, walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Jehovah Elohim, in the midst of the trees of the garden. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I feared, because I am naked, and I hid myself. Did ever people hear the voice of God speaking from the midst of the fire, as thou hast heard, and live? And now, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of Jehovah our God any more, we shall die. For his eyes are upon the ways of man, and he seeth all his steps. There is no darkness, nor shadow of death, where the workers of iniquity may hide themselves. And Jehovah answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh on the vault of the heavens. If I covered my transgressions as Adam, by hiding mine iniquity in my bosom, there is no darkness, nor shadow of death, where the workers of iniquity may hide themselves. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. Jehovah, thou hast searched me, and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising, thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou searchest out my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not yet a word on my tongue, but lo, O Jehovah, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thy hand upon me. O knowledge too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain unto it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? And whither flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into the heavens, thou art there. Or if I make my bed in Sheol, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the dawn and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. And if I say, surely darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even darkness hideth not from thee, and the night shineth as the day, the darkness is as the light. The eyes of Jehovah are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. Can any hide himself in secret places, that I shall not see him? Saith Jehovah, do not I fill the heavens and the earth? Saith Jehovah, though they dig into Sheol, thence shall my hand take them. And though they climb up to the heavens, thence will I bring them down. And though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, there will I command the serpent, and it shall bite them. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of Jehovah. And he went down to Joppa, and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof. And went down into it, to go with them unto Tarshish, from the presence of Jehovah. And he said unto them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear Jehovah, the God of the heavens, who hath made the sea and the dry land. Then were the men exceedingly afraid, and said unto him, What is this thou hast done? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of Jehovah, for he had told them. Who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts accusing or else excusing themselves between themselves. And there is not a creature unapparent before him, but all things are naked and laid bare to his eyes, with whom we have to do. And Jehovah Elohim called to man, and said to him, Where art thou? And Jehovah said to Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And Jehovah came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maidservant, whence comest thou? And whither art thou going? And she said, I am fleeing from the face of my mistress Sarai. And Jehovah said, Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is very grievous, I will go down now, and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come to me. And if not, I will know it. And he caused the families of Judah to come forward, and he took the family of the Zarhites. And he caused the family of the Zarhites to come forward man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he caused his household to come forward man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. And Joshua said to Achan, My son, give, I pray thee, glory to Jehovah the God of Israel, and make confession to him. Tell me now what thou hast done, keep it not back from me. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is that of life. And the dead were judged out of the things written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead which were in them. And they were judged each according to their works. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I feared, because I am naked, and I hid myself. And they were both naked, man and his wife, and were not ashamed. And he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Therefore am I troubled at his presence. I consider, and I am afraid of him. My flesh shuddereth for fear of thee, and I am afraid of thy judgments. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Trembling hath surprised the hypocrites. Who among us shall dwell with the consuming fire? Who among us shall dwell with everlasting flames? And of whom hast thou been afraid or feared, that thou hast lied, and hast not remembered me, nor taken it to heart? Have not I even of long time held my peace, and thou fearest me not? That if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And they were both naked, man and his wife, and were not ashamed. And Moses saw the people how they were stripped, for Aaron had stripped them to their shame before their adversaries. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will meet none to stay me. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and am grown rich, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art the wretched and the miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold purified by fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white garments, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness may not be made manifest, and eye salve to anoint thine eyes, that thou mayest see. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, that he may not walk naked, and that they may not see his shame. And he said, Who told thee that thou art naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee not to eat? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. These things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether as thyself, but I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Wherefore by works of law no flesh shall be justified before him, for by law is knowledge of sin. And man said, The woman, whom thou hast given to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And Jehovah Elohim said, It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmate, his like. And man gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But as for Adam, he found no helpmate, his like. And Jehovah Elohim built the rib that he had taken from man into a woman, and brought her to man. And Moses said to Aaron, What has this people done to thee, that thou hast brought so great a sin on them? And Aaron said, Let not the anger of my Lord burn. Thou knowest the people, that they are set on mischief. And they said to me, Make us a god, who will go before us. For this Moses, the man that has brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what is become of him. And I said to them, Who has gold? They broke it off, and gave it me, and I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf. And Saul said to Samuel, I have indeed hearkened to the voice of Jehovah, and have gone the way which Jehovah sent me, and have brought Agag the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the choicest of the devoted things, to sacrifice to Jehovah thy God in Gilgal. And Samuel said, Has Jehovah delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in hearkening to the voice of Jehovah? Behold, obedience is better than sacrifice, attention than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and self-will is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of Jehovah, he hath also rejected thee from being king. And Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of Jehovah, and thy words, for I feared the people, and hearkened to their voice. If I covered my transgressions as Adam, by hiding mine iniquity in my bosom, the folly of man distorteth his way, and his heart is irritated against Jehovah. He that covereth his transgressions shall not prosper, but whoso confesseth and forsaketh them shall obtain mercy. But he, desirous of justifying himself, said to Jesus, And who is my neighbor? For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness, and seeking to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted to the righteousness of God. Let no man, being tempted, say, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted by evil things, and himself tempts no one. But every one is tempted, drawn away, and enticed by his own lust. Then lust, having conceived, gives birth to sin. But sin fully completed brings forth death. And Jehovah Elohim said to the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now be thou cursed from the ground, which hath opened its mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield thee its strength. A wanderer and fugitive shalt thou be on the earth. And Joseph said to them, What deed is this which ye have done? Did ye not know that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Samuel said, What hast thou done? And Saul said, Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou didst not come within the days appointed, and that the Philistines were assembled at Michmash, then Joab came to the king, and said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came to thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is gone? Wherefore hast thou despised the word of Jehovah to do evil in his sight? Thou hast smitten Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thy house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith Jehovah, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Thy nation and the chief priests have delivered thee up to me. What hast thou done? And the serpent said to the woman, Ye will not certainly die. But God knows that in the day ye eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and ye will be as God, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a pleasure for the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to give intelligence. And she took of its fruit, and ate, and gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent deceived Eve by his craft, so your thoughts should be corrupted from simplicity as to the Christ. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman, having been deceived, was in transgression. And Jehovah Elohim said to the serpent, Because thou hast done this, be thou cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. On thy belly shalt thou go, and eat dust all the days of thy life. And the serpent was more crafty than any animal of the field which Jehovah Elohim had made. And it said to the woman, Is it even so, that God has said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God he hath made man. And if an ox gore a man or a woman, so that they die, then the ox shall certainly be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be guiltless. But if the ox have go red heretofore, and it have been testified to its owner, and he have not kept it in, and it kill a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. If there be imposed on him a satisfaction, then he shall give the ransom of his life, according to what is imposed on him. Whether it gore a son or gore a daughter, according to this judgment shall it be done to him. If the ox gore a bondman or a handmaid, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. And ye shall make a separation between the clean beast and the unclean, and between the unclean fowl and the clean, and ye shall not make yourselves an abomination by beast, or by fowl, or by anything that creepeth on the ground which I have separated for you, declaring it as unclean. The dwellers in the desert shall bow before him, and his enemies shall lick the dust. And thou shalt be brought low, thou shalt speak out of the ground, and thy speech shall come low out of the dust, and thy voice shall be as of one that hath a familiar spirit, out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith Jehovah. They shall lick dust like the serpent. Like crawling things of the earth, they shall come trembling forth from their close places. They shall turn with fear to Jehovah our God, and shall be afraid because of thee. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. He shall crush thy head, and thou shalt crush his heel. Then Jehovah sent fiery serpents among the people, which bit the people, and much people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, in that we have spoken against Jehovah, and against thee. Pray to Jehovah that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people. And though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, there will I command the serpent, and it shall bite them. They shall take up serpents, and if they should drink any deadly thing it shall not injure them. They shall lay hands upon the infirm, and they shall be well. Behold, I give you the power of treading upon serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall in any wise injure you. And Paul, having gathered a certain quantity of sticks together in a bundle and laid it on the fire, a viper coming out from the heat seized his hand. And when the barbarians saw the beast hanging from his hand, they said to one another, This man is certainly a murderer, whom, though saved out of the sea, Nemesis has not allowed to live. He, however, having shaken off the beast into the fire, felt no harm. But they expected that he would have swollen or fallen down suddenly dead. But when they had expected a long time and saw nothing unusual happen to him, changing their opinion, they said he was a god. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. Asp's poison is under their lips. But seeing many of the Pharisees and Sadducees coming to his baptism, he said to them, Offspring of vipers, who has forewarned you to flee from the coming wrath? Offspring of vipers, how can ye speak good things, being wicked? For of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And the field is the world. And the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, but the darnel are the sons of the evil one. Serpents, offspring of vipers, how should ye escape the judgment of hell? Ye are of the devil, as your father, and ye desire to do the lusts of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning, and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks falsehood, he speaks of what is his own, for he is a liar and its father. Said, O full of all deceit and all craft, son of the devil, enemy of all righteousness, wilt thou not cease perverting the right paths of the Lord? He that practices sin is of the devil, for from the beginning the devil sins. To this end the Son of God has been manifested, that he might undo the works of the devil. In this are manifest the children of God and the children of the devil. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, and he who does not love his brother. Jehovah hath sworn in truth unto David. He will not turn from it, of the fruit of thy body will I set upon thy throne. Therefore will the Lord himself give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and shall bring forth a son, and call his name Emmanuel. How long wilt thou wander about, thou backsliding daughter? For Jehovah hath created a new thing on the earth, a woman shall encompass a man. Therefore will he give them up, until the time when she which travaileth shall have brought forth, and the residue of his brethren shall return unto the children of Israel. Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is, being interpreted, God with us. And knew her not until she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. And behold, thou shalt conceive in the womb and bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus. He shall be great, and shall be called Son of the Highest, and the Lord God shall give him the throne of David his father, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob for the ages, and of his kingdom there shall not be an end. But Mary said to the angel, How shall this be, since I know not a man? And the angel answering said to her, The Holy Spirit shall come upon thee, and power of the highest overshadow thee, wherefore the holy thing also which shall be born shall be called Son of God. And thou, child, shalt be called the prophet of the highest, for thou shalt go before the face of the Lord to make ready his ways. But when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his Son, come of woman, come under law, but the God of peace shall bruise Satan under your feet shortly. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. Wherefore he says, having ascended up on high, he has led captivity captive, and has given gifts to men. Having spoiled principalities and authorities, he made a show of them publicly, leading them in triumph by it. Since therefore the children partake of blood and flesh, he also, in like manner, took part in the same, that through death he might annul him who has the might of death, that is, the devil, and might set free all those who through fear of death through the whole of their life were subject to bondage. He that practices sin is of the devil, for from the beginning the devil sins. To this end the Son of God has been manifested, that he might undo the works of the devil. Who is he that gets the victory over the world, but he that believes that Jesus is the Son of God? And there was war in the heaven. Michael and his angels went to war with the dragon. And the dragon fought, and his angels, and he prevailed not, nor was their place found any more in the heaven. And the dragon was angry with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, who keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus. And I saw an angel descending from the heaven, having the key of the abyss, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the abyss, and shut it and sealed it over him, that he should not any more deceive the nations until the 1,000 years were completed. After these things he must be loosed for a little time. And the devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where are both the beast and the false prophet, and they shall be tormented day and night for the ages of ages. Dan will be a serpent on the way, a horned snake on the path, which bitteth the horse's heels, so that the rider falleth backwards. He is despised and left alone of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their faces, despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, and we did regard him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. Therefore will I assign him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and was reckoned with the transgressors, and he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. And after the 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, and shall have nothing, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with an overflow, and unto the end, war, the desolations determined. Then Jesus was carried up into the wilderness by the Spirit to be tempted of the devil, and having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterwards he hungered. And the tempter coming up to him said, If thou be Son of God, speak, that these stones may become loaves of bread. But he answering said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word which goes out through God's mouth. Then the devil takes him to the holy city, and sets him upon the edge of the temple, and says to him, If thou be Son of God, cast thyself down. For it is written, He shall give charge to his angels concerning thee, and on their hands shall they bear thee, lest in any wise thou strike thy foot against a stone. Jesus said to him, It is again written, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again the devil takes him to a very high mountain, and shows him all the kingdoms of the world, and their glory, and says to him, All these things will I give thee if, falling down, thou wilt do me homage. Then says Jesus to him, Get thee away, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt do homage to the Lord thy God, and him alone shalt thou serve. And going forth he went according to his custom to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples also followed him. And when he was at the place he said to them, Pray that ye enter not into temptation. And he was withdrawn from him about a stone's throw, and having knelt down he prayed, saying, Father, if thou wilt remove this cup from me, but then, not my will, but thine be done. And an angel appeared to him from heaven strengthening him, and being in conflict he prayed more intently, and his sweat became as great drops of blood, falling down upon the earth. When I was day by day with you in the temple ye did not stretch out your hands against me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out, and I, if I be lifted up out of the earth, will draw all to me. But this he said signifying by what death he was about to die. I will no longer speak much with you, for the ruler of the world comes, and in me he has nothing. But that the world may know that I love the Father, and as the Father has commanded me, thus I do. Rise up, let us go hence. For, in that himself has suffered, being tempted, he is able to help those that are being tempted. Who in the days of his flesh, having offered up both supplications and entreaties to him who was able to save him out of death, with strong crying and tears, and having been heard because of his piety, fear nothing of what thou art about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to cast of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give to thee the crown of life. And the great dragon was cast out, the ancient serpent, he who is called devil and Satan, he who deceives the whole habitable world, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a great voice in the heaven saying, Now is come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren has been cast out, who accused them before our God day and night, and they have overcome him by reason of the blood of the Lamb, and by reason of the word of their testimony, and have not loved their life even unto death. Therefore be full of delight, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the earth and to the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great rage, knowing he has a short time. And when the dragon saw that he had been cast out into the earth, he persecuted the woman which bore the male child. And there was given to it to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and there was given to it authority over every tribe, and people, and tongue, and nation. And I saw another sign in the heaven, great and wonderful, 7 angels having 7 plagues, the last, for in them the fury of God is completed. And I saw as a glass sea, mingled with fire, and those that had gained the victory over the beast, and over its image, and over the number of its name, standing upon the glass sea, having harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses bondman of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and wonderful are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Righteous and true are thy ways, O King of nations. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and do homage before thee, for thy righteousnesses have been made manifest. And after these things I saw, and the temple of the tabernacle of witness in the heaven was opened, and the 7 angels who had the 7 plagues came out of the temple, clothed in pure bright linen, and girded about the breasts with golden girdles. And when the 1,000 years have been completed, Satan shall be loosed from his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to the war, whose number is as the sand of the sea. To the woman he said, I will greatly increase thy travail and thy pregnancy. With pain thou shalt bear children, and to thy husband shall be thy desire, and he shall rule over thee. And they journeyed from Bethel. And there was yet a certain distance to come to Ephrath, when Rachel travailed in childbirth, and it went hard with her in her childbearing. And it came to pass when it went hard with her in her childbearing, that the midwife said to her, Fear not, for this also is a son for thee. And it came to pass as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pains came upon her. And as she was dying, the women that stood by her said, Fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she did not answer, neither did she take it to heart. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, The glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. Trembling took hold upon him there, anguish, as of a woman in travail. And they shall be terrified, pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them, they shall writhe as a woman that travaileth, they shall be amazed one at another, their faces shall be as flames. Therefore are my loins filled with pain, anguish hath taken hold upon me, as the anguish of a woman in travail. I am bowed down so as not to hear, I am dismayed so as not to see. As a woman with child, that draweth near her delivery, is in travail, and crieth out in her pangs. So have we been before thee, Jehovah. We have been with child, we have been in travail, we have as it were brought forth wind. We have not wrought the deliverance of the land, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. He shall see of the fruit of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant instruct many in righteousness, and he shall bear their iniquities. For I hear a voice, as of a woman in travail, anguish as of her that bringeth forth her first child, the voice of the daughter of Zion, she moaneth, she spreadeth forth her hands, saying, Woe unto me! For my soul faileth because of murderers. We have heard the report thereof, our hands are grown feeble. Anguish hath taken hold of us, pain as of a woman that travaileth. What wilt thou say when he shall visit thee, since thou thyself hast trained him to be princes in chief over thee? Shall not sorrows take thee, as a woman in travail? Thou inhabitress of Lebanon, that makest thy nest in the cedars, how pitiful shalt thou be when pangs come upon thee, pain as of a woman in travail. Damascus is grown feeble, she turneth herself to flee, and terror hath seized on her. Trouble and sorrows have taken hold of her as of a woman in travail. Now why dost thou cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished, that pangs have seized thee as a woman in travail? Be in pain, and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There Jehovah will redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. A woman, when she gives birth to a child, has grief because her hour has come. But when the child is born, she no longer remembers the trouble, on account of the joy that a man has been born into the world. When they may say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon him, as travail upon her that is with child, and they shall in no wise escape. But she shall be preserved in childbearing, if they continue in faith and love and holiness with discretion. If thou doest well, will not thy countenance look up with confidence? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And her husband hear it and be silent at her in the day that he heareth it, then her vows shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband prohibit her on the day that he heareth it, and annul her vow which is upon her, and what hath passed her lips, wherewith she hath bound her soul, then Jehovah shall pardon her. Every vow, and every binding oath to afflict the soul, her husband can establish it, or her husband can annul it. And when the king's edict which he shall make shall be heard throughout his realm, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, from the greatest to the least. The wife has not authority over her own body, but the husband. In like manner also the husband has not authority over his own body, but the wife. But I wish you to know that the Christ is the head of every man, but woman's head is the man, and the Christ's head God. Let your women be silent in the assemblies, for it is not permitted to them to speak, but to be in subjection, as the law also says. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands, as to the Lord, for a husband is head of the wife, as also the Christ is head of the assembly. He is Savior of the body. But even as the assembly is subjected to the Christ, so also wives to their own husbands in everything. Wives, be subject to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord. Let a woman learn in quietness in all subjection. But I do not suffer a woman to teach nor to exercise authority over man, but to be in quietness, discreet, chaste, diligent in home work, good, subject to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be evil spoken of. Likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, that, even if any are disobedient to the word, they may be gained without the word by the conversation of the wives, having witnessed your pure conversation carried out in fear, whose adorning let it not be that outward one of tressing of hair, and wearing gold, or putting on apparel, but the hidden man of the heart, in the incorruptible ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God is of great price. For thus also the holy women who have hoped in God heretofore adorned themselves, being subject to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose children ye have become, doing good, and not fearing with any kind of consternation. And to Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife, and eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed be the ground on thy account. With toil shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and self-will is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of Jehovah, he hath also rejected thee from being king. And Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of Jehovah, and thy words. For I feared the people, and hearkened to their voice. And he says to him, my friend, how camest thou in here not having on a wedding garment? But he was speechless, and his Lord answering said to him, wicked and slothful bondman, thou knewest that I reap where I had not sowed, and gather from where I had not scattered. Thou oughtest then to have put my money to the money changers, and when I came I should have got what is mine with interest. Then shall he answer them, saying, verily I say to you, inasmuch as ye have not done it to one of these least, neither have ye done it to me. He says to him, out of thy mouth will I judge thee, wicked bondman. Thou knewest that I am a harsh man, taking up what I have not laid down and reaping what I have not sowed. Now we know that whatever the things the law says, it speaks to those under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world be under judgment to God. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a pleasure for the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to give intelligence. And she took of its fruit, and ate, and gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. And he said, Who told thee that thou art naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee not to eat? And Jehovah Elohim commanded man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou shalt freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest of it thou shalt certainly die. But I commanded him this thing, saying, Hearken unto my voice, and I will be your God, and ye shall be my people, and walk in all the way that I command you, that it may be well with you. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels, in the stubbornness of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward. And he called his name Noah, saying, This one shall comfort us concerning our work and concerning the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Jehovah has cursed. It is vain for you to rise up early, to lie down late, to eat the bread of sorrows, so to his beloved one he giveth sleep. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What profit hath man of all his labor wherewith he laboreth under the sun? And I applied my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under the heavens. This grievous occupation hath God given to the children of men to weary themselves therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and pursuit of the wind. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that it had cost me to do them. And behold, all was vanity and pursuit of the wind, and there was no profit under the sun. And I hated life, for the work that is wrought under the sun was grievous unto me, for all is vanity and pursuit of the wind. And the land is polluted under the inhabitants thereof, for they have violated the laws, changed the statute, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore doth the curse devour the earth, and they that dwell therein are held guilty. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are consumed, and few men are left. For the creature has been made subject to vanity, not of its will, but by reason of him who has subjected the same, in hope that the creature itself also shall be set free from the bondage of corruption into the liberty of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans together and travails in pain together until now. For evil cometh not forth from the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground. For man is born to trouble, as the sparks fly upwards. Man, born of woman, is of few days, and full of trouble. How often is the lamp of the wicked put out, and cometh their calamity upon them? Doth he distribute sorrows to them in his anger? For we are consumed by thine anger, and by thy fury are we troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days pass away in thy wrath, we spend our years as a passing thought. For what will man have of all his labor and of the striving of his heart, wherewith he hath wearied himself under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail vexation, even in the night his heart taketh no rest. This also is vanity. All his days also he eateth in darkness, and hath much vexation, and sickness, and irritation. These things have I spoken to you that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye have tribulation, but be of good courage, I have overcome the world. And thorns and thistles shall it yield thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. Know for a certainty that Jehovah your God will no more dispossess these nations from before you, and they shall be snares and traps unto you, and scourges in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until ye perish from off this good land which Jehovah your God hath given you. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh even out of the thorns, and the snare gapeth for his substance. Let thistles grow instead of wheat, and tares instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. Thorns and snares are in the way of the perverse. He that keepeth his soul holdeth himself far from them. And lo, it was all grown over with thistles, and nettles had covered the face thereof, and its stone wall was broken down. And I will make it a waste, it shall not be pruned nor cultivated, but there shall come up briars and thorns, and I will command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. And it shall come to pass in that day, that every place, where there were 1,000 vines at 1,000 silver pieces, shall become briars and thorns. Upon the land of my people shall come up thistles and briars, yea, upon all the houses of joy in the joyous city. For thus saith Jehovah to the men of Judah and Jerusalem, break up for you a fallow ground, and sow not among thorns. They have sown wheat, and they reap thorns. They have put themselves to pain, and do not profit. Be ye therefore ashamed of your revenues, because of the fierce anger of Jehovah. And others fell upon the thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. But bringing forth thorns and briars, it is found worthless and nigh to a curse, whose end is to be burned. And he said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. Jehovah gave, and Jehovah hath taken away. Blessed be the name of Jehovah. Thou makest mortal man to return to dust, and sayest, Return, children of men. Covering thyself with light as with a garment, stretching out the heavens like a tent curtain. He maketh the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man. Bringing forth bread out of the earth, and wine which gladdeneth the heart of man. Making his face shine with oil, and with bread he strengtheneth man's heart. One man is assured that he may eat all things, but the weak eats herbs. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, until thou return to the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. What profit hath man of all his labor wherewith he laboreth under the sun? And I applied my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under the heavens. This grievous occupation hath God given to the children of men to weary themselves therewith. Let the stealer steal no more, but rather let him toil, working what is honest with his hands, that he may have to distribute to him that has need. For ye remember, brethren, our labor and toil, working night and day, not to be chargeable to any one of you, we have preached to you the glad tidings of God. For also when we were with you we enjoined you this, that if any man does not like to work, neither let him eat. And he said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. Jehovah gave, and Jehovah hath taken away. Blessed be the name of Jehovah. Thou makest mortal man to return to dust, and sayest, Return, children of men. Thou hiddest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away their breath, they expire and return to their dust. As he came forth from his mother's womb, naked shall he go away again as he came, and shall take nothing of his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And Jehovah Elohim formed man, dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I have ventured to speak unto the Lord. I, who am dust and ashes. I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a sepulchre with you, that I may bury my dead from before me. If I wait, Sheol is my house. I spread my bed in the darkness. I cry to the grave, Thou art my father. To the worm, my mother, and my sister. And where is then my hope? Yea, my hope, who shall see it? It shall go down to the bars of Sheol, when our rest shall be together in the dust. And if after my skin this shall be destroyed, yet from out of my flesh shall I see God. Together they lie down in the dust, and the worms cover them. All flesh would expire together, and man would return to the dust. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my palate, and thou hast laid me in the dust of death. All the fat ones of the earth shall eat and worship. All they that go down to the dust shall bow before him, and he that cannot keep alive his own soul. Thou hiddest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away their breath, they expire and return to their dust. The man that wandereth out of the way of wisdom shall abide in the congregation of the dead. All go unto one place. All are of the dust, and all return to dust. And the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit return unto God who gave it. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame, to everlasting contempt. For this cause, even as by one man sin entered into the world, and by sin death, and thus death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. For until law sin was in the world. But sin is not put to account when there is no law. But death reigned from Adam until Moses, even upon those who had not sinned in the likeness of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him to come. But shall not the act of favor be as the offense? For if by the offense of one the many have died, much rather has the grace of God, and the free gift in grace, which is by the one man Jesus Christ, abounded unto the many. And shall not as by one that has sinned be the gift? For the judgment was of one to condemnation, but the act of favor, of many offenses unto justification. For if by the offense of the one death reigned by the one, much rather shall those who receive the abundance of grace, and of the free gift of righteousness, reign in life by the one Jesus Christ. So then as it was by one offense towards all men to condemnation, so by one righteousness towards all men for justification of life. For as indeed by the disobedience of the one man the many have been constituted sinners, so also by the obedience of the one the many will be constituted righteous. But law came in order that the offense might abound. But where sin abounded, grace has overabounded, in order that, even as sin has reigned in the power of death, so also grace might reign through righteousness to eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. For since by man came death, by man also resurrection of those that are dead. For as in the Adam all die, thus also in the Christ all shall be made alive. And man called his wife's name Eve, because she is the mother of all living. And man gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But as for Adam, he found no helpmate, his like. And man said, This time it is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This shall be called woman, because this was taken out of a man. And he called his name Noah, saying, This one shall comfort us concerning our work and concerning the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Jehovah has cursed. And the angel of Jehovah said to her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because Jehovah hath hearkened to thy affliction. And Leah conceived, and bore a son, and called his name Reuben. For she said, Because Jehovah has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. And she again conceived, and bore a son, and said, Because Jehovah has heard that I am hated, he has therefore given me this one also. And she called his name Simeon. And she again conceived, and bore a son, and said, Now this time will my husband be united to me, for I have borne him 3 sons, therefore was his name called Levi. And she again conceived, and bore a son, and said, This time will I praise Jehovah, therefore she called his name Judah. And she ceased to bear. And it came to pass as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And when the child was grown, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and said, Because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of Jehovah. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is, being interpreted, God with us. And has made of one blood every nation of men to dwell upon the whole face of the earth, having determined ordained times and the boundaries of their dwelling, and Jehovah Elohim made Adam and his wife coats of skin, and clothed them. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. I will greatly rejoice in Jehovah, my soul shall be joyful in my God. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation, he hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with the priestly turban, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. Righteousness of God by faith of Jesus Christ towards all, and upon all those who believe. For there is no difference. For indeed in this we groan, ardently desiring to have put on our house which is from heaven, if indeed being also clothed we shall not be found naked. Him who knew not sin he has made sin for us, that we might become God's righteousness in him. And Jehovah Elohim said, Behold, man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he stretch out his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. But God knows that in the day ye eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and ye will be as God, knowing good and evil. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the heavens, and over the cattle, and over the whole earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth on the earth. And Jehovah said, Behold, the people is one, and have all one language, and this have they begun to do. and now will they be hindered in nothing that they meditate doing. Come, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Where are they then, thy wise men? Let them now tell thee, and let them make known what Jehovah of hosts hath purposed upon Egypt. The princes of Zoan are become foolish, the princes of Noph are deceived, and the cornerstones of its tribes have caused Egypt to err. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth, if so be thou shalt be able to turn him to profit, if so be thou mayest cause terror. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the interpreters of the heavens, the observers of the stars, who predict according to the new moons what shall come upon thee, stand up, and save thee. Thou inhabitress of Lebanon, that makest thy nest in the cedars, how pitiful shalt thou be when pangs come upon thee, pain as of a woman in travail. And out of the ground Jehovah Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, and the tree of life, in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is he that retaineth her. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To him that overcomes, I will give to him to eat of the tree of life which is in the paradise of God. In the midst of its street, and of the river, on this side and on that side, the tree of life, producing 12 fruits, in each month yielding its fruit, and the leaves of the tree for healing of the nations. The meek shall eat and be satisfied. They shall praise Jehovah that seek him, your heart shall live forever. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and died. This is the bread which comes down out of heaven, that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which has come down out of heaven. If any one shall have eaten of this bread he shall live forever. But the bread withal which I shall give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. The Jews therefore contended among themselves, saying, How can he give us this flesh to eat? Jesus therefore said to them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, unless ye shall have eaten the flesh of the Son of Man, and drunk his blood, ye have no life in yourselves. He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood has life eternal, and I will raise him up at the last day, for my flesh is truly food and my blood is truly drink. He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me and I in him. As the living Father has sent me and I live on account of the Father, he also who eats me shall live also on account of me. This is the bread which has come down out of heaven, not as the fathers ate and died, he that eats this bread shall live forever. Therefore Jehovah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden, to till the ground from which he was taken. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, until thou return to the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And every shrub of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For Jehovah Elohim had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. And she further bore his brother Abel. And Abel was a shepherd, but Cain was a husbandman. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield thee its strength. A wanderer and fugitive shalt thou be on the earth. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and planted a vineyard. Moreover, the earth is every way profitable. The king himself is dependent upon the field. And he drove out man, and he set the cherubim, and the flame of the flashing sword, toward the east of the Garden of Eden, to guard the way to the tree of life. And Jehovah Elohim planted a garden in Eden eastward, and there put man whom he had formed. Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring me a heave offering, of every one whose heart prompteth him, ye shall take my heave offering. And the cherubim shall stretch out their wings over it, covering over with their wings the mercy seat, and their faces opposite to one another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubim be turned. And there will I meet with thee, and will speak with thee from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim which are upon the ark of the testimony, everything that I will give thee in commandment unto the children of Israel. So the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from thence the ark of the covenant of Jehovah of hosts, who sitteth between the cherubim, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there by the ark of the covenant of God. To the chief musician, on Shishani Medith, of Asaph, a psalm. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, thou that leadest Joseph like a flock. thou that sittest between the cherubim, shine forth. Jehovah reigneth, let the peoples tremble. He sitteth between the cherubim, let the earth be moved. Who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flame of fire. And as to the angels he says, who makes his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. And the ass saw the angel of Jehovah standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And the ass turned aside out of the way, and went into the field, and Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man before him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him, and said to him, Art thou for us, or for our enemies? And as to the angels he says, who makes his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. Jesus says to him, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father unless by me. But where there is remission of these, there is no longer a sacrifice for sin. Having therefore, brethren, boldness for entering into the Holy of Holies by the blood of Jesus, the new and living way which he has dedicated for us through the veil, that is, his flesh, and having a great priest over the house of God, let us approach with a true heart, in full assurance of faith, sprinkled as to our hearts from a wicked conscience, and washed as to our body with pure water.